a narrative inspired by lesser-known episodes, quirks, and stranger-than-fiction truths. The night the chandelier hummed. No one could explain why it made that sound. Electric, trembling, like a whispering crowd at a rally waiting for a man who turned television airtime into a throne. Donald John Trump stood alone in the dim gold reflection of Trump Tower's 26th floor, a floor that technically didn't exist on paper. The elevators skipped numbers, just like pieces of his life that Americans thought they knew, yet never truly saw. This was the room where he kept things that didn't fit the legend. A high school baseball glove, a stack of rejection letters from Hollywood agents, a faded note from his father that read, "Never let them see you afraid." Most Americans knew the mogul, the hair, the relentless confidence, but they didn't know that Trump once dreamed not of skyscrapers, but of being a movie star. He used to sneak onto sets in Manhattan, watching actors rehearse, memorizing their lines under his breath. People thought the first time he said, "You're fired," was on television, but the truth? He said it at age 12, during a schoolyard business club he created where he charged kids a penny a week to use his crayons. His first enterprise, his first scandal, his first headline in the school paper. His mother, a Scottish immigrant with the voice of sea wind, told him stories of kings and castles. She brushed his hair in the mirror and said, "The world crowns those who crown themselves." Trump believed her. Maybe too deeply. Fast forward decades. America saw the billionaire on magazine covers, but never noticed the quiet, strange fact that he collected old boxing posters, not because he liked the sport, but because he believed every punch-thrown fighter shared the same fear, losing the crowd. That fear followed him everywhere. Even when he bought his first skyscraper, he slept with the window blinds open so he could see the lights of other buildings and remind himself he wasn't alone at the top. People think he hates germs because of arrogance, yet the truth is rooted in a childhood hospital visit where he watched a friend get sick after shaking too many hands. Since then, he washed his palms before every deal, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. Not superstition. Survival instinct.
When Trump stepped into casinos, he didn't gamble. Not once. The dealers whispered about it. To him, risk was acceptable only when he controlled the table. He walked the floors at midnight, pretending to be a tourist, listening to strangers say his name as if he were a myth. The story Americans rarely hear is that he once filed for bankruptcy and sat alone in a limousine afterward, not angry, but oddly calm, counting the number of streetlights between Midtown and Queens, reminding himself that every light was paid for by someone who tried and failed and tried again. The Apprentice wasn't the beginning of his fame. It was his revenge on silence. Television producers originally wanted him for only 6 episodes. They thought he was too stiff, too blunt, too unusual on camera. On the night before filming, he practiced in the mirror for 5 hours, adjusting the tilt of his chin by millimeters. He believed a millimeter could change history. Maybe he was right. Americans saw rallies, speeches, headlines, but didn't know that before every big stage moment, he stood alone for 20 seconds, breathing slow, picturing the crowd upside down, because a public speaking coach once told him that upside-down audiences look powerless. He never forgot the trick. Even the Secret Service didn't know that he sometimes rewrote his own speeches moments before walking out, crossing out polished lines and replacing them with blunt words written in thick Sharpie, because he believed Americans didn't want elegance, they wanted certainty. In the White House, late at night, long after cameras slept, he wandered the halls the way a boy wanders his childhood home after everyone else has gone to bed. He touched the door frames, studying the grain of the wood, imagining the hands of presidents before him, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Kennedy, men he believed were misunderstood, just like him. People think Trump never reads, but tucked beside his bedside lamp was a weathered copy of a book about wartime persuasion, margins full of notes, underlines everywhere. He didn't read for pleasure. He read like a hunter, tracking patterns. One of the strangest unknown truths? He loved handwritten letters, not emails, not tweets, real ink, real paper. He kept boxes of them from construction workers, waitresses, retired soldiers, single mothers, truck drivers. He said once, quietly, to no one in particular, "They write the way America breathes." And though the world painted him as steel and noise, there was a story about him visiting a doorman who worked for him for 35 years after learning the man fell ill. Trump arrived without cameras, held the man's hand, and whispered, "You were here longer than some of my buildings." No magazine printed that one. The chandelier above him hummed again. He looked at the city below, New York, the place that made him, the place that mocked him, the place that could never forget him if even it tried. He whispered into the empty room, "They think they know me." The city lights flickered like applause, or warning. Because love him or hate him, cheer him or boo him, one truth remained. Donald Trump was not a man who happened to America. He was a mirror America accidentally looked into. Some saw possibility, some saw danger, some saw themselves. And somewhere, hidden in a room without a floor number, he kept all the versions of his story: the showman, the builder, the outsider, the boy with Scottish bedtime myths, the man afraid of losing the crowd. And the chandelier finally stopped humming, as if the story had only just begun.